This is my story of what One Taste coaching program did for me. In 2017, at 56 years old, I hadn't had sex in years, and I was still living with this deep, overwhelming feeling of sexual inadequacy. I did everything I knew to do, numerous therapists, including 4 sex therapists, trauma work, and trying different treatment modalities. I kept thinking that one of these therapists must have the key I needed to finally solve my problem. But nothing shifted. I still couldn't experience pleasurable orgasms with or without a partner. And the fear of not being able to orgasm in a relationship kept me out of them for years. And when I was in one, the uncomfortable feelings of inadequacy would just rise up and live in the background. On the outside, I was highly functional. I was an elected official for a period of time. I ran successful companies. I raised 2 children. I carried a problem I couldn't seem to heal or overcome no matter what I did. Then one afternoon in the summer of 2017, everything began to change. I typed orgasm affected by trauma into YouTube and stumbled on a video with 2 men talking about how the body needed to be involved in the healing. The next day, I called both men. Eli from One Taste called me back. We talked for an hour and a half, and at the end of the call, I gave him my credit card to sign up for the next coaching program. It was offered in both New York or London. And without hesitation, I chose London. It ran for 7 months, taught once a month over 4-day weekends. My course was called CP14. So me, myself, and my shame packed our suitcase and flew to London for that first immersion in the beginning of September of 2017. I expected everyone to feel like me in one way or another, dealing with feelings of sexual inadequacy. But no, the women checking me in and working for One Taste were glowing, embodied in a way I had never seen. More than 100 people were there, men and women, and they were having a party. That very evening, my suitcase of shame opened, and I swear to God, my shame flew out the window, never to return. Those 7 months of flying back and forth to London and participating in One Taste coaching program did more for me than 30 years of therapy and 20 years of 12-step work combined. I learned how to speak up for what my body wanted and needed and learn what my body wanted and needed. I learned how to set safe boundaries. I learned what my preferences were. I learned that my masculine was actually driving my life. I learned to bring my feminine back. I learned what a container was. I learned the practice of orgasmic meditation. I learned how to ask clearly and unapologetically for what I needed. Sexually too, I unraveled layers of expectation, obligation, and shame. And I was held by a community, men and women who supported me 24/7, each on their own path. One of my most memorable assignments was writing 200 desires. Yes, 200. I thought it was impossible. It took me several weeks. I still have the list, and many of those desires have come true. And something else happened, something I never expected. After each immersion, I stayed in London for a few extra days because I kept receiving what I can only call downloads, ideas, frameworks, visions for a business I would later start. When I shared some of this with a man in my group in CP14, he looked at me and he said, "This is your destiny." What CP awakened in me went far beyond sexual healing. It activated my purpose, my destiny, and my calling. And it reached back to something I had buried for decades. When I was 26 years old, after seeing my first sex therapist, I wanted to become a sex therapist myself. But I had children, young children. I became a single mother, and that desire disappeared under survival, responsibility, and doing what needed to be done. And to my own surprise, CP14 brought it back to life. It was what's called a buried desire. In 2018, I doubled the sales in my business. I was asked, how did you do that? To those I knew, I told them, I started having deconditioned sex. To those I didn't know, it was the traditional answer. Our company participated in trade shows, we developed new revenue streams, etc. In 2020, I sold my business to return to school for my PhD in clinical sexology, which was one of my 200 desires. In February 2024, I received it. Today, I'm Dr. Suzanne Malvahill, a clinical sexologist and orgasmologist. I publish peer-reviewed research on cannabis as a treatment for female orgasm difficulty. I present at international conferences, teach and train, and I help change U.S. and international laws so cannabis becomes a treatment for orgasm difficulty. CP14 didn't just empower me sexually, it empowered my entire life. And just to be clear, I'm not being paid or endorsed to say any of this. This is simply my story and the truth of what CP14 did for me. Thank you for watching.